What an awesome video. Man, it pumps me up. I can tell we've got some soccer fans in the house. Love it. All right. Well, we've covered a lot of CDP conversations with huge brands and different industries. We have U.S. Soccer, so I'm thrilled to get into a conversation about how a major sports enterprise is using the CDP. So this is going to be exciting. Let's start with some intros. Ross.
I feel so far away from you.
I know. I got to move this a little bit.
Hi, everybody. Ross Moses, VP of Business Ventures. A recent title change, and people ask me, what does that mean? And I don't have a good explanation. I usually just say it's vague enough to let me work in every part of the business without people asking questions. So for the last 5 years, I've been with U.S. Soccer for 10 years. For the last 5, I've overseen product and analytics. I was the lead decision maker on bringing in treasure data in 2020. And then recently, still overseeing analytics and now focusing on a little pivot to the venture space, emerging tech, where we can invest and grow our business and create new businesses and things like that.
Excellent. Thanks, Ross. Sky, please.
Yeah, hi. I'm Sky Raymond. I'm the Director of Data Science at U.S. Soccer. I've been with U.S. Soccer for a little bit over a year now, and when I first started, my first kind of big project was, here's treasure data. The person that had previously managed it was no longer with the company, so that was really my first kind of intro into U.S. Soccer, was understanding our CDP, understanding the different workflows, and all the data sets that were within it, and so I'm excited to talk about that more today.
Awesome. Well, I personally have loved soccer for the last 2 years.
Wow.
How many of you in the room grew up playing soccer as a young kid? How many people?
Oh, wow.
So maybe 70% of the audience or so. How many of you are still big-time soccer fans today?
You're not going to hurt
I would say maybe 40%. Okay.
More than I thought, yeah.
More than we thought. So I'm one of these like late bloomer soccer fans, right? And I'm sure I'm not the only person out there who has found a love for the game later in life. And I think this conversation is going to be really exciting because it's about how can data in the CDP help build more fans. So before we get too far into it, let's hear more about U.S. Soccer. I mean, that video was awesome.
Yeah.
Covered a lot about it, but I know there's more to U.S. Soccer than just the video.
We tried to pick a video that kind of covers everything that U.S. Soccer does, and I think we take for granted, that people understand who we are and what we do. So we're the governing body of the sport in the U.S. What does that mean? We operate the men's and women's national teams, which is probably our most visible platform. Traveling the world, traveling the country, playing in MLS and NFL stadiums, selling tickets, commercial rights, things of that nature, which is where we sit on the commercial side. So that basically is how we generate revenue to fund the rest of the organization. The rest of the organization is elite talent development and identification. So we've got youth national teams from U14 all the way up to U23. So we're scouting and developing talent all the way up to the senior team. We also have extended national teams. So deaf soccer, power soccer, Paralympic soccer, beach soccer. There's a lot more. We've got more extended national teams than any country in the world. So there's a lot that happens beneath those senior teams that you see on TV. And then the grassroots game. We govern the grassroots game by basically setting standards and guidelines for how the game is played across the country at the youth and amateur level. So how many players on a field? Like if you've got a 9-year-old and he's playing 7v7 or 9v9, and you're wondering why doesn't he play 11v11? Those are the type of guidelines we put in place for how the game should be taught and played. And we have member associations. Every state has a state association. Some have 2. And your local park district club or your local travel club is probably a member of them, and then they're a member of U.S. Soccer. So it's this soccer pyramid where U.S. Soccer sits at the top, and you've got professional leagues and amateur members below there. So it really does look like a governing body. And then beyond that, we influence the grassroots game with coaching and referee registration. So if you're trying to get your license and have a credible badge in the space, one of the best ways to do that is to come to U.S. Soccer. And we've got licenses that range from like E all the way up to Pro. So whether you're trying to coach your kid's AYSO team, you can take an online course to do that and learn a lot really quickly. Or if you're trying to coach an MLS professional team, there's courses for that as well. So coaching, referee, trying to influence how the game is taught, and making sure we're calling it to the standard that FIFA sets. globally. That's
Awesome.
the short version.
Nice. Do you guys have any big tournaments coming up? Like anything that people should be aware of?
I'm so glad you asked. We have a little graphic for this too. 2026 is the World Cup. Most people probably know. Coming to the U.S. We're hosting. Yeah. All right. So we're hosting that with Mexico and Canada. That'll be very exciting. That'll be the biggest sporting event in the history of the world, full stop. 1994 is still the most attended World Cup ever, which was in the US. And if you talk to people of a certain age, I guess besides Mark, they'll tell you that 1994 was the year they became soccer fans, right? If you're old enough, right? And so compound all the growth that's happened since then over the last 30 years. We're going to have another moment like that now where the sport has already come so far. So on here, you can see there's even more. Next year, we've got Paris Olympics, Copa America, which is the South American championship, is coming as well. We'll participate in that as Team USA. 2025 is the Club World Cup, which is a club competition, just to find a global champion there. 26, World Cup. 27, we're hopeful we'll have the FIFA Women's World Cup. I'm so glad we have this graphic because it's helping me. I didn't have this memorized. 2027 should be the Women's World Cup. We're bidding, we're optimistic. And then 2028 is the LA Olympics. So the next 5 years, the largest soccer tournament in the world will be played in the US each one of those years. So by the time we get to 2029, the sport's going to look entirely different. Like it's some people would call it mainstream now. Yeah, okay, we can argue about that. By the time we get to 2029, it's going to be mainstream and it's going to be totally different.
Awesome. So now let's talk about the CDP and the role of data and that intersection of soccer and data. So Sky's a rock star at this conference. I'll tell you why. So about 30% of our registrants are data scientists. And we haven't had a lot of data scientists on the stage. So Sky, feel free to talk about models, geek out, coding, whatever you want.
My
the
favorite
audience,
topic.
you have a lot of people in the audience who want to hear more
Great.
from you about your day-to-day. So with that, as you hear, Ross, you think about U.S. soccer, you think about the role that data plays in helping you all achieve your goals, the strategies you have. What have been some challenges you've encountered as you've come into U.S. soccer, you've assessed the current state with the technology, the data? What are some of the challenges you've encountered along the way?
Yeah, so as Ross mentioned, we've got a lot of different touch points with US soccer. And right now, we don't really have a great way to, a unique identifier across all those different data sets. So we have things like Ticketmaster for ticketing. We've got Gigia for our insiders. And our insiders is like our loyalty program. We have Shopify, so e-commerce. Player registration is a big one. This is everything from Johnny down the street up to Messi. That's a huge data set. And then we've got our learning center, which is coaching and referees. And across those different touch points, each kind of represent a different portion of somebody's journey with US soccer. So when you're a child and you're registered with your club, your parent is probably registering you for that, and they're putting in their email for that player registration. And so, and then obviously, like as you get older, when you're buying tickets at 25, that's likely not the same email that you were registered with as a child. So just marrying up all those touch points so that we can actually get that 360 view of how someone's interacted with US soccer over time, even since they were a child. That's important to us. It's important to us to see that customer journey from player to fan, and that's also been a challenge, a good opportunity for us. And we're thinking about addressing that in a couple of different ways. Something like a USSF ID that would allow us to, at your first touch point, you receive this ID and carry it through. And then separately from that, we've grown a lot in the past several years. Just like the sport's grown, our federation has grown as well. And when we started with Treasure, we were a little strapped for resources, so the system was put together in probably not the most ideal way. And so a lot of my first year was spent just untangling that web. We had some help from Infoverity. They've got a booth in the back. They're great. Brandon Moore is here somewhere. He was he's even back there. He was the lead on our project, and he was great. Their team was extremely helpful. They helped us reframe that master segment and really get a more complete picture of all of our customers. So those have just been the biggest challenges over the past year.
Awesome. So Ross, since Guy came in and got it all figured out, got the
We haven't figured it out.
got the data foundation completely
We got some work to
still
do.
working.
completely buttoned up. Now that it's all working so nicely, from a strategic level, how are you looking at the CDP and the data strategy and all the different elements this guy just talked about?
Yeah, so at the organization level, we have what we call strategic pillars. There's 5 of them. It's grow the game, develop the best playing environment. So we're basically talking about participation. How do you get more people playing, and how do you develop the talent? Number 3 is win, right? Especially at the senior national team level. Number 4 is grow the soccer economy so that we can reinvest it back into those other areas. And number 5 is creating a world-class organization. So for people like Sky and me, it's thinking about, how do we focus on technologies that allow us to support those and accelerate those? And so CDP is a great example of that. A more specific example would be what Sky was talking about with our players, coaches, and referees. To this point, we've been on Treasure Data for about 3 years, and we've been focused on fans. So people buying jerseys, buying tickets, joining our Insiders loyalty program, one-off campaigns like that, which is great. It gives us customer lifetime value and allows us to do a lot of cool things. But the other side of the house with players, coaches, and referees has been somewhat neglected or siloed is a better word. So now moving forward, we're going to add those to the mix, right? And that'll give us a 360-degree view. Great, okay. Now, we also have a referee shortage problem in the US for reasons you might expect. It's a tough gig. We're working on the abuse part of this and cracking down on that part and making it easier for people to sign up with online courses. But once we have a 360-degree view, that allows us to basically target players or fans who might be high prospects or strong prospects for the referee program. If you're a 16-year-old high schooler looking to earn money on the weekends or a summer job, or you're a parent who just wants to get your kid out of the house, we can target you and say, hey, look, you can sign up, take the class, over the course of a weekend, boom, you're a referee, and you can now go ref AYSO soccer games. So using our strengths to kind of bring up our lagging metrics is one of the things that integrated, wholesome or holistic CDP view gives us. Another example is Insiders. We were talking about that last night. It's a big opportunity that we see. It's our loyalty program. You can get it in the app. Download and sign up if you're interested. You can earn points and get all kinds of perks. But we're big believers in network effects, basically creating communities that become more valuable as they get bigger. Just by nature of getting bigger, they just become more valuable, right? So that's basically what we're going for with Insiders, right? So we've got about 350,000 members right now. There are various tiers where you get different perks. And just like a traditional loyalty program, you can redeem those points for experiences or gear or whatever, okay, fine. But we've also gamified it. So there's a leaderboard where you can see where your friends rank in terms of points and where you rank, and you can compete. We've also got social features in there where we're going to show a graphic later on, but choose your 11. You can create a lineup, basically who you want to see start the game, and then share that on social media, and then you can argue with your friends about it and show them, hey, I got this cool snazzy graphic. So that's what we're talking about with network effects. And the larger that gets, the more appealing it is, right? Because the more likely you are to find your friend on there, or your friends, or find new friends on there, right? So 100,000 people is cool, 350,000 people is cool, but 5 million is cooler, right? And so with the World Cup coming in 2026, there are some things there, some levers we can pull to make this super valuable for people and super appealing. And then we'll have this massive soccer audience and hopefully have some real network effects.
So US Soccer has a loyalty program and is using data to find referees. That is amazing. The use cases are so creative and compelling across industries. That's awesome. So Sky, from a data science perspective, given the strategies Ross just laid out there, how are you thinking about supporting the organization? What are your key focus areas?
Yeah, well, we're basically just focused on finding models that support the rest of the business, that can generate revenue, optimize the different areas of the business that we touch. So got a few examples. We think there's a big opportunity around events, and so these are like games that we host. Especially like Ross mentioned, in the upcoming several years, there's a lot here. So one of our data scientists, Michael Lopez, has been working on some really good models around events. So for example, we have a venue selection model that helps us pick where we're going to play our games. If we're hosting a game, there's usually a lot of constraints around where we can actually play that game. So things like, maybe a team wants to play on the East Coast, or they want to play on a certain surface. If it's a tournament game, there's even restrictions around like locker rooms, what those look like. So it's very restrictive, and we can usually narrow down to, we'll say, 4 or 5 venues where here are the possibilities of places we could play. And then from there, it's our decision. So what this model does is it takes those venues, we run the venues through the model. The model considers things like number of registered players in an area, historical sales, viewership, just a bunch of different things. And then once you put those venues in, it will give you a projected attendance, which ties to our revenue. So that's important. That's been successful for our events team. They've been using it. In that same train of thought, we've got a likelihood to attend model, which is something else that's interesting. We've just launched this fairly recently. With this model, we basically run all of our customers through this model, and it will give us a likelihood value between 0 and 1 that they're going to attend the next match, dependent on several different things. But this one's fun because we in the past couple of weeks have used it. The first time we used it was in the Nashville match for our men's team against Ghana, and we used it for a 48-hour email. So like leading up into the game, we'll send an email like a week from the game time, then 48 hours, then 24 hours. And using that model, we used it with that 48-hour effort, and we were able to sell 3,000 tickets in the last 48 hours, which is big for us. Cool. So we've seen early success with that model, and we're excited to see where that goes. And then, lastly, we've got, not lastly, but the last one I'm going to talk about is that we have like a product recommendation model, and that's pretty, can be a pretty generic model, but for us, I think it's kind of an interesting use case because we have a lot of one-time purchasers. So maybe it's like somebody who's going to a game and they want to buy a jersey or something. We see them then, and they don't come back to the store. We also have a bit of a cold start problem because we launch new lines all the time. We've got jersey launches, and then obviously like our sales also somewhat depend on the events that are happening at the time. So that model, we've really been able to create our own and make it our own, and we've had some success with that too, just in testing, and we're looking forward to launching that as well. So some exciting stuff going on, and we're obviously looking to, like Ross has mentioned, there's models around referees and who's likely to become coaches, and there's just a lot of opportunity in that space for us.
Very cool. I think this is one of those things where seeing is believing, right? So when we think about the activations and some of the communication touch points you just mentioned, Ross, I'm curious to get your take on just your overall activation strategy, and Sky was touching on some emails and some other ways that you engage with fans. So can you tell us more about that?
Yeah. They gave me a clicker so we can show you guys this stuff. Hopefully this will work. But another one of our core pillars is basically automation. Do I hit this button? Is this going to work? There we go. So we'll run through a couple of examples, but automation's a big one for us, especially because we're lean and mean. We're a nonprofit. We don't have this huge marketing staff. So the more we can do with less, the better. And candidly, we haven't figured this out totally yet. We were having a good conversation over breakfast earlier about how we do this better, right? Because some of our journeys are fairly basic still, but we're sending data from Treasure Data to Braze. Shout out Braze in the back, our outbound marketing partner. I'm scared to walk by their booth because we send so many emails, and I'm afraid they're going to just hand me a bill for overages or something. But they're great. So we send the data to Braze. We do some segmenting there, configure all the emails or push or in-app messages, and send it and hit send from there. This is a Woman of the Match e-commerce promotion. So Rodman won Woman of the Match, and you can get an offer on her jersey with her name and number. This is a know before you go email. So these are for ticket purchasers only, right? You already have a ticket. You're going to the game. Here's what you need to know in terms of bag policy and parking and what time to get there and so on and so forth. This is another e-commerce email that allows us to do some cool visualizations with the Braze. And when Sky's talking about product recommendations, this is where that would show up. So we would have things in here that basically say, based on what you've purchased in the past or just who you are, here's what we think you would be interested in buying next. This is a push. I mentioned Choose Your 11 earlier. This is an in-app experience where you're picking your lineup and sharing it on social. You do that, you can earn points. So we're pushing this out to insiders and those who have engaged with us before in this experience. So you get the idea that like, we're finding segments in here that we think this stuff is going to be relevant to you. This is a tune-in email, so if you're a highly engaged fan and probably likely to watch, this is actually an in-app message. So if you open the app, we'll remind you, hey, we're playing Germany tomorrow. Make sure to tune in on TNT or Telemundo. And I think there's one more. This is a pre-sale. Another one. So this one will be geographically targeted. So if we're going to a market, like we're playing in Salt Lake City and San Diego next with the women, I think next week. So we'll get all of our fans and customers that are in that geo, exclude those who have already purchased, and send a push notification to them saying, hey, we're in your market. And just a reminder, here's how to buy tickets. We also use Braze to do some geofencing. So if you actually go to the game, we'll draw a geofence around the stadium. And then as you walk in, provided you've got location settings enabled, we'll say hi, and we'll say thanks for coming. You get a cap in your app that says, just like a player, you get credit for going to the game, and you get points as part of our Insiders Loyalty program. So that's just another cool one too. So the point is, we send a lot of outbound messages, and again, we haven't gotten this totally right yet, but we've got a vision and a roadmap for how we do more of this in an automated fashion.
I've got the Insider app. Does anybody else here have the Insider app yet? Anyone? All right. We do have a few people. All right. You have a few potential fans in the audience here, Ross. So everybody download the app. So great to see the activations, like what is the output of all this. But behind the scenes, the CDP, I know, is playing a big role in all this, Guy. So can you tell us more about specifically what the CDP is doing for you?
Yeah, we use it as our source of truth database. So we're using it for things like powering our Tableau dashboards. We're creating segments from it. We do a lot of SQL queries in it. I think going forward, we would like to use it more on the marketing side. Right now, we don't really have our marketing team within the tool. It's almost more of like an analyst tool for us at this point. So I think we have some opportunity there. This week, these past few days, I've heard a lot about the probabilistic matching, which I think is going to be beneficial to us because of those pain points that I described earlier with that unification. So we're looking forward to that, looking forward to seeing how that could work for us, and just using the platform to its fullest ability. I think right now we're using portions of the system well, and there are other portions that are still untapped potential for us. So we're looking forward to seeing what else we can do in the next year.
Excellent. So Russ, U.S. Soccer has been using treasure data since, is it 2019?
2020.
2020, okay, so 3 years now. So what have you learned along the way, and what advice do you have for the audience?
I love this question. We learn from our mistakes. This is a highly customized platform. I've heard other people say that standing on this stage, and it's true. It is flexible. My advice is to people either considering it or new to treasure data. And that is that it'll flex to whatever your business needs are, likely, right? But it's a development platform, and you should treat it like a product that you built yourself, even though technically it's not, right? So think about staffing and how you're going to maintain it over the years, because you can use treasure data or professional services to implement, and then you've got new features or new integrations you want to build into it. You can do that ad hoc, like, all right, hey, let's scope something, let's add it, right? But over time, you're going to lose knowledge, right? And then 3 years down the road, you're going to have a new data scientist come in and say, hey, why does this thing exist? What is this workflow for? And I'm going to go, I don't know. I don't have a clue. So having a consistent resource in-house, whether it's a data engineer or a technical product owner who can be accountable to the product. It doesn't have to be everything they do. They can have other responsibilities, but they're accountable to the product. They're managing the knowledge. They're a consistent subject matter expert and can answer questions, make sure you keep what you need and you're cutting what you don't. Ideally, there's two, so you have depth, right? I think that's really important. Sets you up for success. Something we didn't do in the past and has led us to a little bit of or snowballed into a little bit of a Frankenstein instance. So we're doing a lot of cleanup. Sky mentioned our work with InfoVerity. That was necessary, and we still have some more work to do there. But one of the corrections we're going to make moving forward is making sure we've got dedicated engineers and product people who are on treasure data, right? It is super powerful, right? And you can build it to what you need, but it also means you can build it to be something that is just, unwieldy. So think about how you're going to maintain it and staff it. Use the professional services, use treasure data for the big stuff, right? You don't want to just do it all yourself, but have some kind of resource in-house that allows you to have some kind of, overarching knowledge master.
Awesome. We've got some time for audience Q&A, so let's open it up. Who's got questions? All right. Yes. All right. Back there. Here we go. Who raised their hand back there? Okay. Oh.
Nice. Oh, that's perfect.
Do I talk into this thing? Oh, okay, there we go. That's cool. Okay, hey guys. So you know me, I'm Dilian. I lead the machine learning team at Treasure Data. And I'm just curious, with the World Cup in the US approaching, do you have some things that you already have planned, or how soon do you start promoting interest, engagement around the upcoming World Cup?
Yeah.
Are you planning to actually do some things from the CDP related to the upcoming World Cup?
Yes. I'd say most of what we're doing right now is the groundwork, making sure we've got infrastructure in place, a lot of strategy, right? How are we going to use our resources? How are we going to set up the organization to actually capitalize on the interest and revenue that's coming in? As a host country, there's a wave of revenue that gets paid to the host federation, and so we have a responsibility to make sure that makes its way down to the grassroots level, right? So that's not meant to pay for national team players, right? That should be for building access to fields, for making sure people have cleats and balls and scholarships to play on their local club team. So there's a lot of work going into, all right, how do we make that stuff happen? On the technology side, Dillian, I think there's going to be a lot of CDP-related things we do. We'll have activations that are going on all over the country, like watch parties or fan HQs, right? It's not our tournament, right? So we're not selling the tickets, we're not selling the TV rights, right? So it's a moment in time where we get to use it to basically shine a brighter light on US soccer. So watch parties in various markets, cool conferences, participation events, coaching clinics, things like that will all have to be targeted to the right people instead of just doing a spray and pray. So a lot of groundwork right now. We haven't really pulled the trigger on any of this stuff yet, but we got some time.
Excellent. Well, with that, we're going to wrap it up. Thank you, Ross. Thank you, Sky. Let's win the World Cup in 2026.